Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Larry Izamoje. I'm the CEO of Brilla Media Group Nigeria. We're Nigeria's largest sports media network. I'm very honored to be here with my esteemed session makers, I would say panelists, and it's going to be a fantastic discussion. Today we're talking about the challenges between European clubs and African clubs, and literally what we can learn from each other. I'm going to allow the panelists introduce themselves because I think it's only right. So maybe I should start from Sarah. Yeah, hi Sarah.
Absolutely, thank you very much, Debbie. Bonjour à tous. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's already now afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here in Rabat. I wanted to thank the Federation of Morocco to actually also co-partner with the World Football Summit for this amazing event for the first time in Morocco and the second time in Africa. So I'm Sarah Soleimale, for those who don't know me. I used to work at FIFA, so I see a lot of FIFA delegates here in the room. Good to see them. I used to work as a lawyer and a governance manager at FIFA for 10 years. And now I work for the European Club Association, so at club level, no longer at federations level. And I think my presence here in this panel is relevant, and I'm really looking forward to having this discussion with my co-panelists. So thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eng.Hersi Said. I am the president of African Club Association, but back home I am the chairman of the biggest club in Tanzania, Young Africans, one of the oldest and one of the most successful football club in my country, as well as the continental level as well. But moreover, I'm more than happy to be in this panel with my colleagues. And really appreciating the work that has been done by World Football Summit that is happening here in Morocco. And I'm ready for this panel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Mohamed Hamdi, currently International Business Director of Feyenoord Rotterdam, a football club based in the Netherlands. Before that, I was also CEO of Baada Den Haag, which is a Dutch football club based in The Hague. Also some international adventures. I was the commercial marketing director of Al Jazeera football club based in Abu Dhabi. And I did also some work for Infront Sports and Media, which is a large sports marketing company, and also working for Sport 5, overseeing in that moment UEFA Euro 2016. I'm happy to be here, of course. It's my home country. I'm proud also to be here and to speak about, I think, some important challenges for football clubs. And yeah, thank you for the invitation also. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Warek. I am Jose Collado from Sevilla Football Club. It's a big pleasure to come to Morocco, to come to Rabat. We are so close, that's why for us it's amazing to be part here of this panel. Nowadays I am the head of the international sport projects. I am involved on this kind of situations to try to develop our projects abroad Spain. But in the past, my experiences was working for Aspetar in Aspire Zone in Qatar, working to develop players for the World Cup, like fitness coach, and after that went to Sevilla Football Club to be fitness coach of the second team, first team, and methodology director. That's why nowadays, in the last year, changed a bit my role in this business part, and I hope I can share with you the different ideas that we are doing. Thank you very much. Shukran.
Fantastic. So let's get right into it because we have just 30 minutes because they'll be giving me a sign from up there. So Jose, since you're with the mic, or since we stopped with you, let's find out, what would you say is the biggest universal challenge football clubs face today, regardless of geography? And before you answer that question, how are you feeling about being on this panel?
I feel I am in an amazing panel, and I'm so happy to be together with you. Regarding your question, I probably one of the biggest will be the economic sustainability in the football industry. I believe that it's very important to try to, before we were talking about that, no, to think in medium, long term, because it's important to find solutions for the future, not just think about what happened today and tomorrow. And I would like to add one more, that is to add technology in our life, because nowadays everyone, I'm sure that we are using the intelligence, artificial intelligence, sorry. And it's very important to add it in our life, in our clubs, in our federation, in our works, because it can help a lot to take the decisions in the future.
Mohammed, you share the same sentiments in terms of technology. Would you say, what would you say are the challenges that we're facing as well?
I think one universal challenge is the balancing between the financial sustainability between to be competitive. So every club wants to win, but you need also to be looking to your financial situation. And what you can see universal, if it's in Africa, Asia, but also in Europe, many clubs spending a lot of money on players. And if they don't win the league, or they don't compete in European leagues to get the money back, they are struggling, then have a serious issue, to be honest. So I think that's something that is universal at the moment.
And Eng.Hersi, so I want to ask you, because you have great experience with African clubs. So would we say that there's gap in infrastructure? So do you see clubs in both regions moving closer in terms of our strategies, or is there still a gap in infrastructure and management?
Yeah, thank you, Debbie, for this wonderful question. I will agree with the rest of my panel members. We have, in Africa, we have a lot of challenges. One of them that you've mentioned is infrastructure. We've seen in Europe, most of the club, they own infrastructures, including the training facilities, academy setup, as well as the stadium for the matches, which is opposite with African club, most of them. Some of the African clubs has done very well by having, competing to that level of European standards. But most of the clubs in Africa, they lack the infrastructure, which is the most important thing. You cannot develop the players to the best level if you don't have infrastructure. You cannot collect the maximum revenues from the members and fans and supporters that are coming to watch your game if you don't have the best facility when it comes to matches. And I've seen some of the clubs, they're trying now to build. We've seen the likes of Ahli Club. They've shown interest of building one of the biggest stadiums in Egypt, but some of the clubs in Africa, they're lacking that. I'll give you an example of my club, Young Africans. It's one of the oldest football clubs, 90 years of age, but to be honest, we haven't owned the stadium of our own. But based on our leadership, with the help of the government, in the next 1 year, we'll be building a stadium. And we have done a research. It shows that when you have the modern stadium, you will increase the revenues from that angle and eventually help your club economically being sustainable to operate the operations. So infrastructure gap is there between European clubs and African clubs.
I was going to do a follow-up question, but I think I would leave that to the audience. So once we're done, we'll leave the mic open for anyone that has questions. So I'll leave my follow-up question, because I was going to ask you something about the stadiums. Sarah, what do you think? Do you see that clubs in both regions are moving closer in terms of management, or is there still a gap in how African clubs do things versus the European clubs?
So I think for the benefit of the discussions, we split between European and African, but both regions have really quite a diverse diversity in composition. So also in Europe, if you check the western side of Europe and the eastern side of Europe, the northern and the southern, it's quite different in terms of management. And I would say it's quite similar here in Africa. But for the sake of the discussion, taking both continents, I think there are similarities, especially with respect to youth football development. I think on both continents it's quite understood that when you invest in youth football and that you can then sell players, that basically allow you to have a revenue stream. So that's something that both continents have understood. Where I think there is still a gap between both is, of course, as mentioned by President Eng.Hersi, in terms of infrastructure. I would say also in terms of facilities on medical staff. So, for instance, in a lot of top European clubs, you have medical staff that is all year round dedicated to accompanying players and the clubs, and basically also raising standards. It's something that you rarely see, I think, on the continent. And another aspect as well is the stability in governance. I would say you have a lot of emerging regions on the African continent where you face difficulties in view of unstable ownership. You may face also difficulties related to, let's say, political interference in the club management, and also with respect to poor league structures. So I think it was mentioned by the previous panel that ensuring that there is a coherent system and culture with proper structure would allow those gaps to be filled out. So yeah, that's my analysis.
I love that you've taken this conversation into youth structures and talent development, because that's very important when we're comparing European clubs and African clubs. So I'm just going to touch on what you said. How do governance policies affect youth football structures, and especially in contexts where there's public and private investments? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's inevitable. It's already happening. I think it's just a question of understanding how do you structure it, how do you frame it, how do you ensure there is safety around it. I noticed that there is probably weak club licensing and academy regulations in the way it's enforced. So they do exist on the continent, but the enforcement is quite divergent. So I think it's an important aspect. Why is it important? Because I think there are many academies that are private on the continent, and by being private and not being based on the oversight of the National Football Federation, you end up having different coaching standards, different basically also pathways for players that at the end of this academy training maybe don't end up having a guaranteed licensed club at the end of the journey. So I think this is a real problem that implies for national football federations and private academies to have a discussion. We also speak about training rewards. So being privately owned, not being recognized by a national federation, it implies also that you miss a bit this spot on the training. So I would say my analysis on the club licensing and academy regulation could be improved. I think also young players are not, let's say, very well protected. You see a lot of pre-contracts on the market. You see a lot of also pressure by middlemen or agent, as we want to call them, on families that maybe lack legal understanding of situations, and sign documents without being fully aware that it's restricting the future of their son or daughter. So I think that's also definitely something that should be underlined. Yeah.
And I love that you said that, because when we're talking about African youth development, Hersi, so this is for you. What is missing? How can we also better protect the players? Because I think you mentioned that as well. What is missing in the ecosystem in terms of protecting the players and African youth development?
Thank you for this. If you ask me if there's one continent that is blessed with talent, I will tell you Africa. We are so blessed with talents, and we have talents everywhere. And lucky in Africa, I think football is #1 game that is, beloved game in the continent is football. Whenever that you go to primary school, secondary school, you will find 70% of the kids playing soccer. You go to the streets, you'll find kids playing soccer. So soccer is #1 in Africa. So if you ask me what we have in Africa, we have the raw talent. What is missing now in Africa, I will mention 2 to 3 elements. Element #1 is the proper knowledge of the football development, starting from the scouting level where you can be able to identify talent. That is #1. #2, taking these talents to the best of their performance. I mean, giving them the right knowledge, the right infrastructure, the right profile for them to build their career. So this is one element that is missing. The second element is now compliance and the rest of the marketing activities. The compliance has been mentioned here. You have a kid who's below 18. Can he be able to sign the agreement, or he can't? There are a number of people that are, bringing their attention to the players, including those agents and middle people, talking about their family engagement as well. So there's a lot of incompliances around the kids that will also devalue the process of these players. Number 3, which is the most important thing, is the end user's requirement. Are we sending these players to the right places? Which is also a very big problem here for the players. So if we can be able to manage this cycle from the establishment of these kids toward to the best of their performances, and bring them to the best platform and allow them to showcase their talent, I think we can be able to produce the best players in the continent toward the world. And I can tell you, some of the players, they've been through this very difficult process, but they managed to do that. Talking about Sadio Mane, if you know his background, he will tell you he's coming from a very difficult environment in terms of upkeeping for his performance, but is now doing the best. So if we can smoothen the process of these players, I think we'll have the best player that can add value to the global level of football.
Thank you, Hersi. As you were speaking, I was just thinking of, because I run a foundation called Football for Girls Africa, and we deal with girls in underserved communities, teaching them to have a space in football. But the realities are there's sometimes no infrastructure, poverty. So with Mohammed and Yose, I want to understand from the European point of view, what are the things you look at when you're dealing with Africans, knowing our realities, knowing what is on ground for different countries? What are the key things you look at culturally, economically, and structurally as well?
I think it's a good thing if you see to the difference in continent that in Africa there are also clubs who are trying to develop the data, the talent development, but also the commercial growth. I think it is a 360 approach, which is really important, because if you have more income, you can create better talent development program. You create them as first team player, and then you sell them to a bigger club. Then you have a revenue stream. And that's going on and on. So the 360 approach is really important and needs to start somewhere. And in European clubs, they are really trying to develop that also from Feyenoord terms, to having that income stream besides of the fact that you are creating also talent development and you sell them as a core business of a football club. But you need to make sure that the data should be up to date, but not only the data for the talent identify or the talent development program, but also the data for the fans, which is really important because you can create an extra revenue stream on it, and with that money you can also having a great result also for the team and the clubs. I'm not sure if you're...
It's a very interesting question. In my opinion, when we are thinking to move abroad Spain and thinking in other countries and try to develop some projects in this case in Africa. First of all, we totally understand that there are this gap in the economical levels, but we need to understand the context. We usually try to find a key person, a person that is really know the context, because I am from Sevilla, from Spain, but I don't like the copy-paste. I mean, that I cannot make the same that I am doing in Sevilla, here in Rabat, probably. Okay, I can work in the same idea, but checking the context, right? That's why in the economical aspect, it is a key to know exactly the context of the place. And after that, something that I follow totally our colleague, Mohammed, the 360, to give to the project of players, because they are not players, an holistic idea, because most of them, they will not be football players. That's why it's very important that they have an studies. We offer them a school close that football project, because you know that just a small percentage will be football players and will earn a lot of money, like, for example, Sadio Mane. But we need to give to the other players this possibility to continue in the life working with another kind of studies. And it is for me the key point to do some projects abroad Spain.
When we talk about the relationship between European and African clubs, we talk a lot about talent exports. Yose, do you think that there's something else we should be looking at that we haven't really focused on? Is there another advantage to the relationship between both sides?
For example, we have nowadays, we signed like 1 year ago, more or less, a MOU with the NPFL, the Nigerian Professional Football League. We know that there are huge talent in Africa, but we don't believe in the short term. We know that we need to focus in the long term. That's why we are trying to bring group of players to Sevilla in a short term, and we are trying to develop them there. We are working or trying to work with them with the idea to develop the employers, sharing our know-how and trying to adapt it, in this case in Nigeria. And of course we have case similars in here in Morocco with the Sporting Club Casablanca. We already came with our female team last season in August. We had some meetings with the president and vice president in Sevilla to try to share our ideas, how is our model, and is the way that we believe for the future.
I love that you mentioned Nigeria. I had a big smile on my face. Hi, Nigerians. Mohammed, when you were speaking earlier, you mentioned data, right? And as Yose was speaking, I'm also thinking, if Sevilla is working with the MPFL, I imagine that there are gaps in data as well. What can African clubs do in terms of, looking at that gap in data? And are there any emerging opportunities in getting the right data for African clubs?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as mentioned, Africa is, a really important continent. Loves football. Everyone is trying also to following the teams. If you're looking also to the TV media rights, all the European competition are also visible here in Africa. So I think that the data is an important thing. We as Feyenoord signed an agreement with Microsoft not so long ago, and on 3 pillars. And one of the pillars is all the clubs. You can have data where you see the date of birth of someone, is a male or female, and what kind of family he has. But I think in a data world you should also know which school they are, what is the talent development plan. Can you as football club offer them a unique proposition also to bring the player and the family also to the club, to think about how you could organize that infrastructure, and to know really the fan, or at least someone who is following your club really well. So not just, we are a football club, we have 1 million database. With that 1 million, we're going to a company or going to an association, tell them we have 1 million followers. But what are they doing? What they are worth? We need to know that clearly. So that's why we ask Microsoft also to have a clear look at that. I think the world of tech is really changing in a rapid environment. And I think that the football clubs, Africa, Europe, Asia, we need to come together. We need to close the bridge. You know, there's a gap, not only in infrastructure, but also we need to work closely together, because end of the day, the football is globally, right? So there's one big family, and all the people, you need to engagement with each other. And I think that will be helping the football in the evaluation, also in the data use, let's say, for Africa and Europe. Yeah.
Hersi, when we talk about using technology, are there affordable, practical tools that African clubs can implement, can use? I mean, thinking of budgets as well, money, you know. So what can African clubs do using tech tools?
Yeah, first and foremost, I would like also to add the question that you sent to Jose regarding the what relationship beyond selling players. I'll give a typical example of a football club in Tanzania called Young Africans, where I'm the chairman. In 2016, we had a very difficult moment of losing a chairman and a sponsor at the same time. And it was kind of old-fashioned situation where chairman is the one financing the team and do everything for the team. And we went to a very difficult moment of even be able not to pay the salaries and run the club. So, but it's the biggest football club in Tanzania with the biggest fan base in the country. So we came up in 2020, we came up with a project called Transformation. And it's one of the things that I would like to share to the other African clubs and football people. We came up with that project, and the reason behind was to get the best of what we have as a football club. And what we did is we were looking at the clubs in Europe and see how can they be able to run their football club profitably, starting from the club ownership to the structure of the administration to the fan engagement process. So these three elements were the key. And we engaged a company called La Liga, which is it's a company that runs football in Spain. And they invited us and become our consultant when we were learning about three elements that I've mentioned earlier on. So we learned about the club ownership, and we saw that our club was a private football club. But is there any best practice that allows this type of ownership that can be able to, you know, build your club financially well and be capable to run the operations? And then number two was the structure. What are the departments around football? We used to have this normal, like you have a chairman, you have a secretary general who runs the club. And the secretary general, obviously, is the one who's paying. He's a finance guy at the same time. He's the one managing the games and all this stuff. So we went to learn other departments that can add value to your club, including the communication department. Nowadays, through communication, you can be able to get money out of it. Through legal departments, through football development, and all other departments like marketing and sales that were not part of football in Africa at that time. And the third element that we went to learn was the fan engagement. We as young Africans, we used to have the massive fan in the country. But can we be able to get the value from them? Can they add financial value? Or it's just them celebrating when we win or being sad when we lose? Can we go beyond that? And we managed to learn from La Liga. And to be honest, it's a club of members where they used to pay a small amount of money, like $1 a month and $12 a year as membership fees. And I can tell you in 2020, we were collecting $10,000 from the members. When we learn now from Europe, from La Liga, and be able to implement the system, customized based on our nature and our culture in Africa, I can tell you the next year, which is season 21-22, we managed to collect $1 million from the members. From $10,000 to $1 million. And these members were looking at the platform and see how they can be able to add value financially and they can be able to register and become a member of the club, and they pay their membership fees. So we create a database that we learned from Spain. That database allows them to register and pay their membership fees. And there were a number of ways that we used to make sure that all these members registered. We went to the bank, signed an agreement with the bank, and allowed the bank to be one of the registration platform. So when you go there as, let's say, a CRDB customer, one of the bank in Tanzania that has branches across the country, you go there, you register yourself and become a member of the club, and they give you a card which is co-branded. It's a debit card or credit card of the bank, but at the same time gives you all the information as a member of the club. And they deduct your membership fees from your account. If you're a new member, you fill one form, and that form gives you an opportunity to open an account, at the same time be a member of the club. So we learned from Spain and customized based on our nature in Africa and managed to introduce the platform to the country. And I can tell you, since 21-22, the club is doing very well in terms of the structure. We managed to pull a number of members and funds. We managed to pull more sponsors through the same database. We managed to bring the clubs very close to the supporters. Performance on the pitch was very well. I can tell you from 2021, we won everything in Tanzania, including the league, FA Cup, but as well as on the continental level, we managed to go all the way to the final of CAF Confederation. So there is more that we can collaborate with Europeans, not only selling players. We can learn their system, we can learn their administration style, we can learn how are they performing and customize based on our countries and our culture, and be able to do very well.
I'll tell you something. When you said $1 million, someone almost gave you a round of applause. I caught that in the audience. So I guess what we do have in common is we all like money. You know, we all want to make money. Before I come back to you, Sarah, I just want to mention that we're opening this up to everyone now. So if you have a question, we'll take maybe one or two. And maybe, Sarah, you answer the last question I have. I had quite a list, but I'm sure I can engage you later. I love that he mentioned fan culture, branding as well. So that's how I want us to wrap up. How can African clubs build global brands, you know, without losing the essence of our African pride, you know, our local pride? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's the whole debate here. I think there is a specificity on the continent that you will find nowhere else, and that shouldn't be lost. I think the point is not to do a copy-paste of what Europe did, as mentioned by Jose. It's not. It's absolutely not the point. I think the local specificities and the identity of each club on the continent need to be respected, need to be nurtured, need to be celebrated. So that's something to be really kept in mind. But it's true that we are on this global scale in football. And there is also global ambition from most clubs that are in Africa, also in Europe and in America and elsewhere. So I think it's an interesting debate. To me, that's a balance to strike. You need to strike this balance by first taking care of nurturing your local audience, making sure that they actually see themselves in the product you are developing, because you can also see that in Europe, some clubs wanted a global reach and first bet on that global reach, and they lost actually then afterwards the local identity and local supporters. So I think it's important to really invest on that, and especially because it's a huge population in Africa. I think before wanting to go outside the continent, already reach the full continent as a whole, and you might have an assessment on that. The global reach, I think, can be important as an impact here because of the diaspora. I think I see a lot of people in the room. I'm not even sure whether they are based on the continent or if they're, like me, part of the diaspora. So I think it's important to also leverage that, you know, to make sure that the first ones that are being that are identifying with whatever project a club on the continent is doing, that is the diaspora. So there are many ways to do it, of course, like, I don't know, limited jersey collection for diaspora abroad, or I had a discussion with President Eng.Hersi as well. There is a way to ensure membership is taken not only on the continent but also abroad with the diaspora through branches. The system put in place by Young African in this respect is amazing. I don't think I've seen that on the continent, so more questions should be directed to him. Sorry about that, President. But it's a good example. What they are doing is a really good example on how they are leveraging the local audience, so in Tanzania, but also abroad, based on their value that is also the diaspora.
Fantastic. And we'll just take 1 or 2 questions from the audience and we'll wrap this up. Yeah. Okay, we have 1 question here. Okay.
It's coming.
No, that's fine.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to all the panelists. Quite a lot of interesting things here. My question is probably directed to President Eng.Hersi. I mean, I'm a club president since 2011, and I don't see communication between clubs in Africa. And I wonder, how do you manage, that relationship with the clubs? Because I think it's good to learn from Europe, but I think it's also, the base should be that we should be learning from each other before we can go out. This is something that I wanted to know, how you're running that communication with the club and how we can get in touch on a permanent base, having a platform like you have a platform for your club. The second one is the business model, and I don't believe today that we can build on the same business model with Europe because of the different things that are not the same. But yes, we can be inspired. I think you did something great in being inspired by what La Liga is doing, and then we need to adjust to the specificity like Sarah was saying before. And how do we build a sustainable business model for our club? Because I don't think today any African club can build the Paris Saint-Germain model or Barcelona or some other club. So we need to find money, like you were saying. Money is the key, but it's not always the solution. We do have other ways of building, of finding money, but again, for me, it's start and finish from learning from each other's experience and then building on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just one last question here, and maybe we'll wrap it up, and you can meet the speakers after.
Thank you very much. My question is also to Engineer Hersi, and it's a question on posterity. So how do we inspire this current generation to pass down the enthusiasm, the passion of African clubs down to the next generation? And I'm asking this because what I notice about European clubs is, your dad is an Arsenal fan, you're born into Arsenal, and it's the whole family that becomes an Arsenal generation, right? So, but what is the hope for African clubs in that line? What's your thoughts about that?
Okay, Engineer Hersi, I just want to appeal to keep it quite short as well. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. My President, which club are you from? Senegal. Very good. Thank you for that. So I would like to introduce about ACA. It's African Club Association. It's an association that was created very soon through the platform of CAF under the President Motsepe. We all know that Motsepe is coming from the background of football clubs, Mamelodi Sundowns. He thought there's a very good reason of these clubs coming together. We all have this competition that we have locally and continentally, but we need to have an association which will bring all the clubs in Africa together. So I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate that work has been done by President Motsepe and the ExCom of CAF. I can see the former Vice President of CAF is here, my brother Waberi, and some of the ExCom members here of CAF. So that decision of allowing ACA to be registered is a reason of having the clubs coming together. And a few months ago, we signed an agreement, the MOU with Morocco. The headquarters will be here of ACA, African Club Association. And as we talk now, the registration is on the process. We're finalizing the registration of ACA here in Morocco. And thanks to the president of the federation here, our brother Fauz, and the government of Morocco for supporting ACA establishment. Under this ACA establishment, all the clubs will be registered and become one. We will be able to see our challenges that we're facing continentally. We can be able to find solution altogether. So this is a very good platform, and we will reach to all the clubs in the continent regarding the matter of ACA. And through that, we can be able to learn the best practice from one another, from the clubs in Senegal, to the clubs in Morocco, to the clubs in Algeria, the clubs in South Africa. And definitely, before jumping to a level of going to Europe, we can start with our own. We have amazing setup in Africa, and I can tell you, based on this transformation that Yanga has done, we have invited a team called Tipi Mazembe from Congo. They came to Dar es Salaam and understand and learn the entire transformation Yanga has done. The township rollers from Botswana, they flew all the way from Southern Africa to East Africa to learn what is happening. A club from Kenya, Gor Mahia, and the the opponents of Gor Mahia, which is FC Leopards, traveled from Nairobi to Dar es Salaam to learn this thing. So under ACA, we can be able to share the best practice, and definitely before going to Europe, we can be able to sort out our issues. That's number one. Regarding the energy that we have with the kids and boys in Africa, the best practice is to promote our local leagues. I can tell you, 4 years ago, when Manchester United is playing in the EPL or Arsenal is playing EPL, nobody never had any interest of looking at the local games. But I can tell you now in my country, it has been upside down. People are going for the local matches rather than this EPL and Spanish La Liga. I can tell you, Jose is there. He was representing La Liga in Africa. They're now struggling to bring the best as they used to have from the media channels. In Tanzania, the media channels are focusing more on the local, and we have 16 teams in the league, 270 games broadcasted live in a year. So in that regards, there's a lot of attractions for the locals to watch their local leagues. So we will start with the clubs by signing the best players, by providing a better platform for competitions, by creating awareness of our local leagues. We will be able to pull this new generation. And we have to add, this new generation are IT established. We have to change our model of communication, engaging a lot of social media, creating attractions on those platforms, where these generations are not like the former generation where they go to the stadium without promotions, without adding value. Some of the games in my country, and I've seen CAF doing a lot, you have a big game, you attract more people to come, you add more value, sometimes you provide musical concept within the games, a performance of a musician. So we need to integrate some of the elements that fits this new profile and new generation so that we attract them to come to football. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic, fantastic. I don't know if anyone has any last words before we wrap up the session. Last words, anyone? Anyone? Okay. Thank you very much for joining our session. I hope that you found this as interesting as I did. My takeaway is that we need to tell our stories more as well, and I think that's the job of the media. Maybe that's why I just always think of, because I work in the media. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to Sarah. Thank you, President. Thank you, Mohammed, and thank you, Jose. Thank you, everyone. And please meet us behind. All of you that had questions that couldn't get the mic, please feel free to engage with the panelists and enjoy the rest of your day.